Hey, fifth grade. For today's poetry lesson, we're going to be looking at a poem that we've seen before. The poem is Tree Heartbeat, and it's written by Siobhan Anderson. In this poem, Siobhan, a seventh grader, tells the story of the tree that grew outside her bedroom window. Stanza by stanza, she takes us through the four seasons and the sensations that she associates with her tree. Follow along with me as I read. Tree Heartbeat. The tree was there. It was always there, gently tapping at my window for me to come and play. A warm breeze lingered in its branches, a leftover of summer, as it dropped pointy red treasures in my hair. I leaned against the rough autumn bark, remembered when my dad said the tree was alive, listened for a heartbeat, tree heartbeat. Dressed in silver, she twirled her branches, dumping snow when least expected. I climbed up, where nestled among branches I stayed all afternoon. I leaned against the snowy bark, listened for a heartbeat, tree heartbeat. Red blossoms burst from limbs, fireworks in April. I caught them in my shirt, only to throw them back up to the tree's embrace. I leaned my head against the soft, wet bark, listened for a heartbeat, tree heartbeat. The only shady place on the lawn, but with room enough for everyone. A hole on the left for water balloons when brothers were around. I leaned my face against the cool bark, listened for a heartbeat, tree heartbeat. Now a lighted match against pale blue sky. It waits for my father, knowing its life is at an end. A life of snow, balloons, blossoms, and buds. I lean once more against the bark. I remember how my dad told me it was alive. Listen for a heartbeat, tree heartbeat. All right, guys, before we go back into this poem and analyze for a specific thing, the thing that I'm asking you to look for today, I want to point out a couple of things that are going on in this poem. The first thing that I want to point out, I kind of mentioned before I started reading this poem, is that each stanza, each of the first four stanzas, is devoted to a specific season. So we have fall in stanza 1, we have winter in stanza 2, and then we have spring in stanza 3, and summer in stanza 4. Stanza 5, however, is what we would call an elegy to the tree. We've read an elegy before, and it's a poem devoted to mourning the loss of someone or something. And that's what this poem is really about, is mourning the loss of a tree that the poet had a connection to. And so in her poem, she doesn't explicitly tell us what season it is. She doesn't come right out and say fall or spring or summer, but she gives us clues. She implies it. So when she says, I leaned against the rough autumn bark, that's our clue. As it dropped its pointy red treasures in my hair, again, in fall, that's when a tree lets go of its leaves. So again, a clue. She doesn't come right out and state it. You'll see clues that indicate season throughout each of those stanzas. Excuse me. The other thing I wanted to mention was the figurative language that Siobhan used throughout this poem. So if we look here and we look at this line, as it dropped pointy red treasures in my hair, that she's using metaphor. She's calling the leaves pointy red treasures. In doing so, she's transferring qualities that we would normally associate with treasure to the leaves itself. So she doesn't look at it as a burden. Oh, great, now I have to go rake my yard. She views these leaves as treasure. So we also see figurative language in the last line of each of these stanzas. This is personification. She's giving the tree a heartbeat. The tree is an inanimate object, but she's transferring qualities that we would normally associate with a person or a living thing to the tree. So trees we don't normally think of trees having a heartbeat, but because she puts it out here for us, now we do. Okay. We also see personification here in this line. Dressed in silver, she twirled her branches. So she is comparing a lady who might be dressed up for a winter party wearing a silver dress and twirling in that dress so she can see her skirt fan out. She's comparing that to the tree. And what's probably literally happening to the tree is that the wind is blowing, and as it blows, it creates kind of a swirling effect for the branches. And what happens is she dumps her snow that was resting on those branches as a result. But she beautifully says that by using personification, and it presents a much more elegant and vivid image in our mind's eye. So there's tons of personification and metaphor being used throughout this poem. I'm not going to walk you through every example, but I think you see what I mean with the ones that I've shared. I also wanted to talk about the use of repetition in this poem by using the same line at the end of each stanza. It creates repetition that's effective. So it's pleasing to the ear and to the eye. It doesn't make your face get all scrunchy. And if we listen to this rhythm, it kind of mimics the sound that we would normally associate with a heartbeat. So listen for a heartbeat, tree heartbeat. I'm going to clap those syllables and hopefully you'll hear what I mean. Listen for a heartbeat, tree heartbeat. Listen for a heartbeat, tree heartbeat. So she's trying to use repetition to mimic that sound, which ties into what she's saying about the tree even more vividly. I also want to show you one last thing, and then we're going to talk about what you're going to be analyzing for. Not only does she use repetition effectively with the last line of her poem, but she also uses a technique called alliteration. And that's when we repeat a consonant sound close to a beginning consonant sound, close to in a word that is close to other words with that same beginning consonant sound. So we see balloons, blossoms, and buds. The "ba" sound is being repeated in those three words that come very close together. And so that creates some rhythm too. She's using alliteration. So she used a lot of different techniques that good writers use in this poem. So this is a good one to model after. So today, as you are going back in and commenting, what I would like for you to look for is the phrases and lines that touch your senses, that you can see, hear, or feel. Then think about the other kind of feelings, the emotions that Siobhan's sensory image evokes in you. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to comment and tell me. I want three comments. I want you to highlight words or phrases that are sensory. So they're trying to evoke a sense, whether that's something you can see or hear or touch. Then I also want you to tell me what emotion is tied to that sensory description. Some of them may not have an emotion that is tied to that. So in that case, I want you to be really specific and tell me what your mind's eye sees or hears or feels when you read those lines. And don't just repeat the lines of the poem. Tell me what your imagination fills in addition to what's on the lines or on the page in those lines of the poem. So it's kind of like a William Carlos Williams thing. The poet puts it out there, but your brain fills in the rest. That's what I want. I want really good and specific comments here. So we're looking at sensory details, and then we're also looking at a different kind of feeling, not the sense of touch, but also what emotions are you noticing are present in this poem? How does Siobhan feel about the tree? So 3 comments, sensory, so see, hear, touch, or emotions. All right, guys, let me know if you have any questions. I love and miss you. Just one more thing. Sensory imagery combined with her specific memories of the tree made Siobhan's poem a great one. As poets who are trying to find ideas and things, think about how you can describe what you see, feel, hear, taste, and smell so that you can put others there inside the world of your poem.